Hey folks, just wanted to set some, do some educational piece on structured cable, how to set a rack up, basically set some minimum expectations of what we have when we set a rack up. So wanted to be able to kind of show you the different pieces and parts of what this looks like, and then be able to have this be a educational piece so that I don't have to explain this again. Right off the bat, I just kind of want to show you, the camera's gonna get pretty shaky here, but I'm just gonna show you what we've got. Here's the different pieces and parts of this rack. You've got a patch panel, patch cables. This is a brush panel, this thing with all the fuzzy brushes into it. Obviously you've got network switch. This guy is actually a router. You probably won't see a whole lot of these out there. We don't generally use Ubiquiti a whole bunch. For routers in this case. And then also there's a Ubiquiti NVR. This is what's actually doing the kind of the brain box for their cameras. Now if you kind of trace these wires back, the NVR is plugged into the router. This switch comes down to the router. Same thing right here. So both of these switches, I don't go from switch to switch and then switch to router. We want each thing what is termed in the industry as home run. So you have a direct link, almost like flights. You have a direct flight from this switch down to the router. The router is the thing that is the hub, if you will. That is the gateway to get in and out of the internet, or the on-ramp. Maybe that's a better way to say it. So at the end of the day, the patch panel, all this does is this takes our structured cable, our Cat6, and it plugs it in on the backside with what are called Keystone jacks. And I'll show you what that looks like. Maybe I'll show you what that looks like. Here we go, right here. So these Keystone jacks come in a box, and that's the tool that crimps them on. That's the end of, see if I can get that into focus. So this Keystone jack, it's a female RJ45 is what that's called. It's got little lines where each one of the individual wires goes. I'll get a close-up of that when we're actually doing it. But each one of these Cat6, or these Keystone jacks, plug into the holes on the patch panel. So this is called a Keystone patch panel. That's these square holes or rectangles. These just click in. Let's see, which way would they go? So Cat6, so you can read it. There's like a little, there's a little thing on the bottom that grabs, and then you rock it forward and it locks into place with that little clip. And so once you're done, then you, with the cable, basically, this is crimped onto the cable, then you click this into the backside of the patch panel. So what we're gonna actually do, I've got one funky colored Cat6 cable that is plugged into 17. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk you through the process of here's what it would look like if we wanted to get this thing crimped on and everything looking right, and again, set minimum expectation. So, let me see if I can get that into frame. Okay. Here's the trick. Anytime you're doing structured cable, the thing is you want all of your cables on the backside. You don't want a big bird's nest of cables. You want everything to look very uniform, very clean. Just look like one really cleanly brushed ponytail, if you will. Now, the one tricky bit about this is I've got a really funky looking couple extra wires that are coming off the corner of this wall. You want to be able to have most of your wires coming out of one location so that you can zip tie this whole thing together. Now, if you've got a couple strays like what we do, the trick is how do I make these strays look as sexy as possible? Because you don't want this wire just hanging out. It looks dirty, it looks unfinished, it doesn't look clean, and it doesn't look professional. We don't want this, we don't want this, we don't want this. So the trick is, how are we gonna make it look right? So the trick on this, right now, how I have this brown cable comes off of the corner, and it's balled up into kind of a service loop. That's what we call that. It goes through the actual Keystone patch panel. Let me see if I can get It comes through the hole where it will be eventually plugged into, and then I just put an RJ45 end on it. So I'm going to remember that goes into port 17. Okay, it just has an RJ45 end on it. So I'm going to push this back through the hole. There we go. Okay. Set this back on there. Okay. This, I'm going to unwind, take this back. I'm going to take this service loop out. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and pick a way to run these cables so that they don't make me angry. So the cables run in as straight of lines as possible. And so at the end of the day, there's kind of a trick to this. I mean, if you're really OCD, it honestly helps you in this job, because you want your eye wants to see these lines running in a straight line. And so I'm just going to kind of basically be able to do that. I'm actually going to run this back through the hole, because I took this service loop out, and I'll show you what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to run this back through. I'm going to have this cable go up the wall, make a 90-degree turn, and join this ponytail, okay? Now, once I'm there, I'm going to run it down. Most of these cables, I'm basically just going to touch the wall. This is how I did most of the other cables. So I would touch the wall, okay? Hold the cable there, and then I'm gonna see if I can get out of frame here. I'm going to pull on this wire so it's relatively taut to the front of the patch panel. Okay, so ideally, when I crimp this end, this brown wire is going to run right along the rest of this. Okay, so I have it pinched with my fingers. I just found the location where if I cut this end off and put a RJ45 Keystone jack on the end of it, if I zip tie the rest of this, this will all flow in line. Okay, so again, I'm going to crimp this off. I'll just kind of show you here. So I just picked a random spot to run 90 degrees over. Now that's where the rest of these cables are going to go as well. Okay, so I ran this over to where the bundle will join. I hit the back side of the wall. Okay, and then basically I just found the spot at the end of the patch panel where it's going to go through. Now here's the next piece. Okay, so that determines the length of the wire that I need. The next piece is I'm going to pull that wire out of this port, which would be port 15, and I'm going to cut the sheathing off. This will probably be a different video, so if you don't know how to do this piece, we'll have a separate thing on how to do that. This is going to be the most boring part of it. Okay, let's see. So always, we want to do standard B, not standard A. Everything's color-coded on the sides of these Keystone jacks to tell you where it needs to go. So brown and green on one side, orange and blue on the other. I'm going to unwind all the wires. I'm going to grab my crimp tool. Okay, this sits in, and all I'm doing is I'm just laying the wires inside of the little slits in the plastic, maybe what I'd call it. It's about as simple as it gets. It used to be a lot harder. We try to never use anything, tools or products or anything that's overly complicated. It just doesn't lend a good problem, or it doesn't create a good product. I'll say it that way. It always creates problems. Okay, so here's what this kind of looks like before you crimp it. It just kind of looks like that. So your wires kind of lay down inside of these in this case, the 45-degree cuts that's in the back side of this. Now essentially what I'm going to do, this tool, this crimp tool, actually it cuts everything off cleanly, and there's kind of a trick to getting this thing in there. Let's see if I can do it. There we go. Okay, and it's going to cut everything. Oh, I pulled a wire off. Dadgummit. Try it one more time here. Everything's harder when you're trying to create educational footage. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. That looks right. So I'm just going to crimp down. You'll know because all the wires cut off. Okay, I'm gonna release the handle, push this end back out, and then I want to double check to just make sure. Okay, is everything pushed all the way down into these little slits so that the metal makes contact with the wire on the inside? It does, and then I'm just double checking my color coding pattern. So again, everything is done according to standard B, not according to standard A. It is. So then I'm going to grab a cap, put the cap on. Okay. Now here's the last piece. Is I'm going to then come in on the back side, and just like kind of how I showed previously, where you're going to plug it into the slot, almost leaning down, and then you're going to rock the end up, and it'll click into place. So let me see if I can show you what that looks like. The product, when it's done, it's going to look like that. So where it's just a nice flush finish. And then once I'm all done with this entire patch panel, what's going to happen is I'm going to come back and I'm going to zip tie all of this so it's one nice kind of ponytail looking thing, and I'm going to clip the ends off those zip ties. So I'll have a picture of what this rack looks like when we're done. I had two different types of patch cables. These are 6-inch patch cables, and I thought it would look cool if we alternated colors. I don't know if it does look cool or not, but at the end of the day, it gives it kind of a unique look. Ideally, I like to have black, so everything's very clean, very cut and dry. There's nothing extravagant about it. I have seen some places they'll get different colors for different items. So like you would have blue for cameras, white for your computers, and green for your access points or something like that. We don't necessarily do that. All black usually looks the best to my eye, but I had just a mix of patch cables, so that's what we're using today. Anyway, that's call it the minimum expectation of what we need when we are putting together a rack. And if I step back, when we are done with a rack, I don't want any hanging cables. I don't want any hanging patch cable, power cable, all of this stuff on the side. It needs to look clean and neat and tidy and professional. It needs to look like a Fortune 500 company did it. And so if it doesn't look like that, then it's wrong. But anyway, just wanting to kind of show that and provide a little instruction and education centered around that. Okay, thanks so much.